Bishop Hopkins,
Yes.
you are leading this session this morning. What were your feelings, your thoughts about the election of Patrick?
Well, I was really impressed with the affirmation of the Central and Southern European Central Conference in re-electing him for a lifetime. And also was impressed because this is a very diverse Central Conference. I mean, you've got 15 countries. I think there's nearly 20 languages. It's a very difficult area for a bishop to travel around. And so in 4 brief years, Bishop Streiff has been serving in this Central Conference, and that reaffirmation, I think, was a sign of the people appreciating his ministry.
Okay. What do you think about the discussion this morning? There were not so a lot of people who were talking about how long Bishop Streiff should be elected.
Yes, that was a very interesting conversation, because in the rules of this Central Conference, that the Executive Committee can bring the recommendation to the plenary discussion, and they can either bring re-election for 4 years or they can bring re-election for a lifetime. And so in the conversation, the question is, do you want to elect a bishop for life or not? And I was listening very carefully. The people who spoke were by and large came from Switzerland and Austria. And yet I know that there are people who came from the former Soviet bloc areas, like in Bulgaria, Ukraine, Poland, that we didn't hear their voices. But you can understand why they would be concerned about having some leader that was never going to be replaced. And so I thought that the substance of the conversation was good. But in addition to that, I thought it was helpful that people learned that the Methodists can talk about something, disagree, and still be unified. And I think this conference leaves here feeling that everybody had a chance to express themselves.
What do you think generally about this Central Conference?
I think the Central Conference, when it comes together and listens to stories, they feel strong. But when they spread out, sometimes they feel very small, because they're isolated, they have small congregations, they don't have a chance to be with Methodists from around the world very much. So this conference is important because it shows us that when we share what we have, like the loaves and fishes, God can multiply that. So I feel that this conference is good because coming together gives us new strength as we go out into our areas, and that as long as we're doing God's work, God can take the gifts that we offer and multiply them.
A last question. In your biography, I saw that you have to do with the Operation Classroom.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this project?
Oh, that's been a love of mine. Back in 1985, I was in Indiana, and actually our lay leader at the time said that the Methodist Church does a lot of mission work, but many people in the pew cannot tell you a story. So he said, let's do something big throughout all of Indiana that had 2 different conferences. So we went to the bishop at the time, and he said, let's do some work in Liberia and Sierra Leone. So in 1985, I went to Liberia and Sierra Leone with a team of about 10 people. And we visited and selected 10 schools with the bishops. Then we came back to Indiana. Indiana had 20 districts at that time. And we assigned 2 districts to each one of those schools in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And since 1985, there's been a relationship, a partnership, with them sending work teams to Liberia and Sierra Leone, to sending school supplies. And it's a way of making the mission of Christ personal. And there's also been some people from Liberia and Sierra Leone that have come to Indiana, and so it's been a long-term partnership. I was elected bishop in '96 and sent to Minnesota for 8 years. And now I'm in East Ohio. I'm in my 5th year. So I haven't been back to Indiana. But Operation Classroom has been picked up by other conferences as we continue to do that mission work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.